Welcome to The Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Hello, my name is Dr. Denise Nicholson, and this podcast is for anyone looking for inspiration. Today, I'd like to welcome you back because I have an inspiring guest. This episode of Bold Conversations, we are going to dive into love and family and the hidden pain behind one of the most devastating public health crises of our time, the opioid epidemic. So our guest is Lisa Friedman, and she is an award-winning essayist. Okay, she's an educator and, of course, an author. Hence why she's here. She has a powerful new novel called Hello, Wife. Please welcome Lisa Friedman.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Lisa, for joining us and telling us a little bit more about the message of Hello, Wife. As we dive in, I think my first question is, why this topic?
Well, I'm a volunteer at Smithsonian, and as you know, there was a lot of uprising when the opioid crisis was really breaking over Washington, with connection to the Smithsonian and the Sackler family, and everybody was talking about it all the time. It was very much in the forefront of my mind. But most importantly, my sister married an addict. She married late in life, and it was my first experience with this issue. And I felt I was very surprised. And, it doesn't happen. I don't know. This is how it happened to me. I was so surprised that I felt like I was missing an entire world of like an issue that I knew nothing about. And so I really sort of dug into, what is this crisis all about? How does it meander into families? And also I was really interested in sharing my feeling that it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter what your family is like. It doesn't matter what great people you are, or rotten people, if that's the case, but it doesn't have any boundaries. And that it really surprised me that this happened in my family. And I think that that's not an uncommon feeling.
Yes. Most people think they're the only one dealing with any issue because, you want to feel that you're different. I mean, we have a lot of differences, but we have more commonalities than we have differences.
Yeah.
So that inspired you to choose this topic. Was there a specific or particular experience that sparked the novel's creation?
The novel's creation came out of my own panic, dread of a situation that I saw as very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was 47 when they got married. Neither of them had ever been married.
Okay.
And he had a car accident at the age of 17.
Mm.
In the car accident, his father was killed. This is the husband of my sister, the addict that she married.
Yes.
And because his father was killed, his mother was really unavailable emotionally to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was injured, put on opioids. And because she wasn't really paying attention because she was grieving, the condition went on for a really long time. In fact, for decades. The more I learned about this subject, the more I read about it for my own sanity, the more I saw that this was not an uncommon situation. And I interviewed a lot of surgeons in particular who agreed that the standard of care, I don't know if this is the actual standard of care, but the common use of opioids after surgery is excessive. So in other words, if a person has, let's say, a hysterectomy, a big surgery, they are sent home with, you stay in the hospital for 2 days on an intravenous pain medication. And then when you're sent home with enough pills, enough opioid pills to cover you for about 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
The more I looked into this, the more honest people became with me about this crisis. I learned that if you are that uncomfortable for more than 2 days, if you can't tolerate your pain for more than 2 days, then that's a rarity. The idea is that you only get sent home from the hospital after surgery if you are in a good enough condition to tolerate the pain that you have. Anything more than 2 days means either you are, it means that you're not handling this well.
Or developing complications.
Well, if you're developing complications, usually something else happens. It's usually
Mm-hmm.
not just pain. If it's
Pain.
just pain, you should be sent home with 2 days worth of pain medications. And the standard of care right now is to send you home with enough for 21 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you have a gigantic container of pills that you probably medically don't need.
Right.
Why do they do that? Well, the sad truth is that they do that so the patients won't call. It's a very simple cause and effect. They don't want you to call and say, I still have pain. And this is one way that the medical community has evolved to take care of that situation. And it's a terrible shame. It's also true. That was one of my concerns. I had my own surgery, which I don't know if it, it's appropriate to talk about it, but I had my own surgery. And when I came home, I had 21 opioid pills. And I took one. For my entire recovery, I took one the night I got home. The rest were just sitting there in the medicine cabinet. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous for a variety of reasons. Opioids create a depression that requires more opioids. And even those of us who are not prone to addiction can really fall by the wayside. We can really go to the ditch.
So you're saying that most patients go home with 21 days of prescribed opioids when they only need maybe a day to maximum 7 days after.
Oh gosh, yes. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I spoke with so many physicians who agreed with this, that you shouldn't need that much pain medication. Well, then what's the standard? Why is the standard set the way it is set?
And that's because they don't want people to call.
That's one of the reasons, probably. I think that was a really interesting thing to admit from the medical community.
Well, it's I mean, they've admitted to you. I'm a nurse practitioner, hospitalist, and when we send patients home, we don't send them home with, that many opioids, and especially if we expect that they have a chronic illness and they're going to be on, or they already have been taking something, they will go back to their primary prescriber.
Correct.
For maybe things have changed since you've done your research, but when did you find out about how they have been prescribing medications, or admitted that they have been prescribing a 30-day or a 21-day just so that they won't be inundated with calls?
Probably 10 or 12 years ago.
Okay. Because things have changed since.
Thank goodness things have changed. But honestly, it was such a rude awakening. We're talking about why approach this topic. And this is one of the reasons. Yes. It was such a rude awakening to me. And my sister, who at that time knew something about drugs because she was married already to this man.
Yes.
When she saw what I had in that medicine bottle, she said, do you have any idea how much money you could make?
Oh, wow.
If you sold those pills. And of course I don't, but she did. So that's another step in the process of the problem. Yeah.
Wow. Now, you were inspired by your experience and then your sister's experience. And I know that the opioid epidemic, it has affected millions.
Right.
So why was it important to explore it through fiction rather than nonfiction?
Um, you have a lot more leeway with fiction.
Okay.
If it was a nonfiction story, it would be based on real characters
Mm-hmm.
and cited.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, so when I was starting to put together the idea for the book, I was talking about it with my friends or whoever I ran into. And one time I was at a dinner with my husband's work, so I didn't know any of the people at our table. And somebody said, "What are you writing about?" And I said, "I'm writing about a woman who marries an addict." And okay, everybody was talking. I went into the ladies' room. That woman who asked me the question came into the ladies' room and stood next to me at the sink. And she whispered to me, "My son has a drug problem."
Oh, wow.
And it broke my heart because she whispered and she waited until we were away from other people. It is that embarrassing, shameful, and hidden. And things that are hidden can become dangerous. So I got even more sort of motivated to reach a much farther audience that a nonfiction book would if it came only from my particular experience. And
Yeah.
so I fictionalized it. And I do think that it makes it a little more readable because I don't want people who are hiding to shy away from what I'm writing, or people who have had no personal experience with addiction to shy
Mhm.
away from the story, which they might do if it was a nonfiction memoir or expose.
And it's so much easier to read a fictional story and think, oh, it's not real. This is just,
That's right. That's
it's
right.
more soothing to say, okay, this is just
That's right.
Charlotte's story, and Charlotte is a character.
And I think it's less scary. My son said it's like watching Law and Order. The reason he likes to watch Law and Order is because it's fiction.
Mm.
It's not scary.
And yet, art imitates real life as
That's
well
it.
as real life imitates art.
Exactly.
So tell us about Charlotte's story. How, you know, how did you shape her character, knowing that she's going to make choices, or maybe you didn't even plan for her to make painful choices, but developing a character that we can empathize with, empathize with. I'm eating up my words here. Yeah, but developing a character that we can empathize with.
That was very important to me
Yeah.
because I don't want anybody to be allowed to slough her off
Mm,
based on any of her character traits. So she's an overweight middle-aged woman who always wanted to be married. What a
mhm,
great reason to put the book down. If you're not an overweight middle-aged woman who needs to be married,
uh-huh,
you may think this is not for you. But she is a multifaceted character in that the story flashes back to a lot of her experiences through childhood and young adulthood.
yes.
And the reader gets to see, how did she get here? How
Mhm,
did she get to this point in her life where her determination to be married, to have a partner like this, came from somewhere that in all of the experiences that are shared about her, someone is going to relate to, whether it's an episode in elementary school or an exchange she had with her parents when she was a teenager. I think that I was very cognizant of creating an entire person, not just a 47-year-old woman who meets an addict, but
yeah.
a woman who has gotten to this place for the following reasons. And that's where the story really comes alive. How did she get to this point? When we meet her, the book starts where she meets this man on the very first page or second
Mhm,
page. How did she get there? And that's the really interesting part of the story. That's part of the reason why I love her so much. It took me a long time to publish this book because I love her so much. I feel like she's mine. I didn't want to let her go.
Mm-hmm.
And when the book finally gained some kind of a form, I realized that I'm not giving over this wonderful, beloved character. I'm sharing her. And when it went out to the readers, that was the response that I got back, that they can understand her, even though they have no experience, so they say, in any of the things that happened with her.
So how did you build the story and the world around Charlotte and the experiences that she was going to encounter? How did you build a world around her?
One of the things I like to tell my writing students is sit inside the character and write. Sit inside the skin. And when you do something like that, it's almost like a psychological dissection. If the person behaves in this way, why? Where are they coming from? What happened to them that influenced the way they are now? Why is someone a smoker? Why does somebody drive the car that they drive? These were all thoughts in my mind when I was putting together her character. I wanted her to be as rich and deep as a person that you know well.
Yes.
Like a sister. The book is very much about sisters and sisterhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was writing, I thought of her as a sister, someone that I love desperately, but also someone that I can see is going wrong. And instead of criticizing her as a sister, instead, I went back and tried to imagine, why is she like that? And I think that's how the book became more of a tapestry and less of an individual portrayal of a singular person.
I see that the novel captures the complex relationships between mothers and fathers and sisters. Which one of those relationships were the most challenging for you to write?
The mother.
Why?
The mother-daughter relationship. Because mothers, I think, exert the most opinionated expressions with their daughter, in my experience, with daughters.
Mm-hmm.
You can say anything from a mother to a daughter and from a daughter to a mother. And I was worrying about that because I wanted it to be true and real.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the exchanges are very sharp. And to portray love is a dicey thing when you're talking about people who misbehave or who argue or who get into trouble and need rescuing. And a mother can be stalwart, critical, disappointed, and challenging at the same time. And I was concerned about that. I wanted to make sure that I did it well, that I showed it from enough, with all of its facets and from enough angles that the mother-daughter relationship in the book can feel more universal to the reader.
Now, did you add any balancing tactics that would add or aid to, a more palliative reception of this relationship?
I add humor.
Yeah.
Humor is everything. Humor is everything.
Yes.
And these people are funny. And the way that they describe things is funny.
Yeah.
And so if there's a hint of humor in how I'm delivering the information, it's more palatable. I believe that in
Mhm.
everything.
Yes. So humor played a role in balancing the heavy theme of, all of the experiences that Charlotte was going through and the other characters, of course.
Exactly. And I like to call myself a humor writer. I wrote a humor column for 2 years in
Mm.
Huffington Post, and
Oh,
my
wow.
humor essays that have been in the New York Times Magazine
Mm.
are humor essays,
Yes, you're an essayist.
even though they are about truly horrible topics. That my first piece was about my father's dementia.
Mm.
And I realized after I wrote that piece, and I received all the mail you can imagine, that with humor you can pretty much say anything, and it'll soften any hard edge if the wording is light, if you have jokes, if people are amusing, and a lot of people are funny,
Yes.
and Charlotte is funny.
Yeah. Without even trying. But
Yeah, she's
most
not
of
trying.
the times, people that are funny are hiding or battling with
That's
something.
right.
And
That's right.
so they use humor as a cushion to protect them
Correct.
from whatever it is that they're battling.
That's true.
What do
That's
you want readers to learn about the emotional toll of addiction?
um, it's brutal.
Hmm.
The emotional toll of addiction is brutal. It is no joke, no laughing matter. This is one family grappling with one problem. It's a microcosm, really.
Yes.
But I would like them to see that, again, this can happen to anybody. And more importantly, people need our compassion. When someone comes with a problem, it's very easy to shun them and it, when really people need to feel soft about each other, to open up their hearts just a little bit to a person with a problem, and to see through the problem, to understand the person behind it. I hope that the book says something about that.
I also think that as family members, you want to be supportive to a loved one. Someone's battling this thing. How are you? How do you support them? How do you support a family member that's going through all of this, and you're not experienced with managing care? Like
Correct.
you're lost. Like, how do you start? Where do you start when you find out that a family member is struggling with this disease? And I want to say a disease because it may have been precipitated by, an opioid and that you took because you got sick or you were introduced to it some
Right.
way, shape, or form. But it does start to develop a disease, an addictive disease, that it is no different from treating cancer or diabetes.
That's
You
right.
now need professional care. But how do we start? You're not, we don't know that it's a disease. You just don't know. You
We don't know.
probably, someone's listening and this is their first time hearing that addiction is a disease.
Yeah.
So how do we start to support them?
It's shocking. Addiction is a disease. One of the things I was very careful about in the book is um, sort of defining addiction through action.
Mm-hmm.
So Charlotte is overweight. That's a food addiction.
Mm-hmm.
She smokes cigarettes. That's a nicotine addiction. And then she comes home with this addict. I think that I layered those on top of each other on purpose because there are overweight people who are food addicts who don't have the other addictions. I'm making this as broad as I possibly can. And in my opinion, how do we help? We listen. We don't turn a blind eye. It's very easy to look away and say, this is not my problem, when in truth it's everybody's problem. And by connecting with people, by again showing compassion, and by learning that this is not an embarrassment, this is not a comment on your parenting or how you've treated each other. It has nothing to do with anybody but the addicted person. And like a disease, it's not their fault. And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't help to turn away. What we need to do is to look in and think, how can I help this person? And, you know, I spent a lot of time at a methadone clinic when I was researching. And every single person there was forceful. We don't want this.
Oh.
Every single participant. And I must admit that when I first went there, I was a little terrified, and I wanted to look away. These were people who I didn't like the look of, and I felt fear. Fear it's based on the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And so my story is one example of knowingness. If you read this book, you're going to know a little bit about a person who's an addict, and how loving she is, and how wonderful she is, and how she's a whole person. Not what I used to equate with addicts, which is the guy on the street with his pants hanging down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was an eye opener. There are people
so different.
in this clinic.
Yeah.
And also I have to say, I was surprised at myself for my reaction. And I'm a person who had some personal experience with it. And even still, I was really hesitant to speak too close to anybody. I was afraid.
You know, I like that you gave real life characters to this epidemic, because, like you said, we are expecting to see someone looking, you know, grungy on the streets, when it's the lawyer, the doctor, the wife, the
It
nurse,
is.
the athlete, you know?
It is.
It is regular schmegler people,
It is.
and they have had to deal with some hard, rough truth, or a really hard experience that brought them to this place. And sometimes, because I remember I had a client who was a registered nurse, and she had some back surgery, and she couldn't go back to work after the back surgery, because during that short period of healing time, maybe 2 or 3 months out, she developed, you know, she became an addict.
Yes.
And she was a regular, real good,
Yes.
wholesome person.
Right.
So don't judge a book by the cover, even though, you know, that's how we do. We judge a book by the cover. But it's not who you think. It's not only who you think looks like.
That's right.
You
That's
know, drug addict. It's
I
just
would like
an
to.
epidemic.
I would like to lift the dark curtain that's hanging over addiction. I really would. I think if we could talk about it, I think if we could admit it to each other without whispering, maybe things would change. I think, I don't know how change happens, but I do think that the more we know, the more familiar we are, and the more we care, the better everybody is going to be.
And I believe that's a great message, to lift people out of it, get people to talk more about it, normalize that there is an issue going on, rather than hiding, oh my God, there's an issue going
That's right.
on. Like the woman in the bathroom who could only whisper, because had she not, there would have been judgment on her
That's right.
character, judgment on her mothering skills, judgment on, total judgment on her, instead of, oh my goodness, I know someone that can help.
Exactly.
And so there's a stigma, but it's not a made up stigma. It's real.
It's real.
It's real. So people can't just go out and say, without knowing and trusting the community that they're in. Is there a community that you've developed, or are you putting together a community where people can have a safe place to feel that they can talk about this and not be judged?
I think that would be grand. It is not happening.
Mm-hmm.
It is so shameful that it's not, I did think about that,
Mm-hmm.
but it is not happening. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't going to come together as a community and why there weren't going to be other people speaking out until one of my old friends told me that people are losing children. And they don't want to still associate with the guy on the street with his pants down.
Mm.
And I think one of the real tragedies is when you don't know about something, you're going to be shocked if it happens to you. Like me, I was shocked. Having a more wide perspective, or understanding that these things are going on and happening in every community and in every household, will stop us from being shocked. And maybe people would be more amenable and open to coming together as a community to do something about this. And until that time, it really is just an enormous black mark stigma.
Mm-hmm. So I remember when, opioids, I mean, it's still seen as a taboo, but I remember when, like in the 1990s and the early 2000s, where it wasn't about the teacher, the lawyer, the doctor, the nurse, the athlete. It was mostly, it's other people, it's their problem, it's
That's right.
it's black people's problem, it's poor people's problem, it's those people's problem. And so I remember when there was that, the distinction where this is not our problem. And that's also part of the reason why this epidemic was able to just spread and grow and rooted in shame and hiding, because now no one wants to be seen as those people
Right.
problem. But I believe that if we were to have a different campaign where we're showing the mother at home, the athlete, the lawyer, the doctor, the nurse, if we are starting to show over time,
Right.
what what real addicts look like,
Exactly.
then it will shift. Eventually, the shame will shift, the blame will shift, and more people will start to come out and say, okay, I need help because of this.
Right. And maybe to teach their kids,
Mm-hmm.
and to keep an eye on what they see. I think we see a lot of things that we don't necessarily act on, or that maybe don't register at the time. So the more we know about it,
Mm-hmm.
the more we would recognize it when it comes our way. Charlotte is a very needy person.
Mm-hmm.
And she never got what she wanted. She really just wanted to get married and raise a family, and that never happened for her. And so when the relationship begins, she is over the moon thrilled. No matter what anybody says, there's no way she's going to let this man go. She doesn't want to
She
let him
missed all the red flags.
Exactly. There were no.
Or she ignored them. I won't say she missed them, because she
Well,
probably saw them and just ignored the red
I
flags.
think in this family, I think her family saw
Mm-hmm.
but with no clarity. She didn't see anything, but the family didn't act because what could they do?
Mm.
And in truth, there's stuff you can do. You can educate, especially educate people about what can happen. And someone told me that there's a drug out there now that is addictive with one dose, a party drug. And this is terrifying to me that kids can share these things with each other with no information, no education, and no warning from the parents. I remember when my kids were little, we had little fire drill kinds of things about what to do in certain scenarios. We
Yes.
never did that with drugs. And maybe that's what needs to happen is the parents need to sit down with these very young kids and say, what are you going to do if somebody says, I have a funny story. When my boys were little, we were trying to make them stranger savvy. And
Mm-hmm.
so we would, at one point, we asked my little one, what would you do if a guy drives up in a car and he says, hey, little boy, you want to go for a ride and get some ice cream? And my kid said, yes.
Of course, ice cream.
Well, so there was an opportunity to correct, but
Yeah.
the parent had to bring it up. And who's going to bring this up if they think that they are exempt?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. And I believe that now, today when we talk about opioid crisis, it's not just about teaching the dangers, but it's also about uh, learning from past experiences, learning from past data, from what communities have shared that has happened. And so making sure that healing doesn't come at the cost of someone's future,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
again, if more people are aware, then one thing about learning is when you learn something, the fear is gone because you
Mm,
understand something, right? It's
awareness. Hmm.
awareness. And so if more people read more stories like mine about how these things happen, then maybe it becomes more fluid in the family conversation.
Yes.
Maybe I have some readers that I run all my work through, and one of them told me that she couldn't read it
Mm.
because this happened to her and she lost
Too
it
close to home.
so close to home. She
Mm.
said, I had no idea. So I think that if you have an idea, maybe you don't have to be afraid of it. And maybe that will make you a little proactive
Hmm.
and spread the word a little bit. Yeah, this exists. People are becoming addicts who we least expect to use drugs. Uh,
Yep.
and instead of saying it can't happen to me and isn't that too bad, maybe she didn't have good parents or whatever the answer is, let's just understand that this is happening.
And how do we move on from here?
We talk about it.
Yes.
We learn and we talk about it.
There's a new trend on social media. We listen and we don't judge.
And we don't. And how do you not judge? You educate yourself.
You educate yourself. Lisa, you've written for the New York Times, Smithsonian, and the HuffPost. How was writing this novel different from those other work?
Addiction is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've written about some really hard things, but this is so endless and scary that while I was writing it, I felt like I was possessed because I wanted to get done with it. It was so scary, I didn't want to be there, like being in a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it hurt my feelings literally hurt my feelings that my sister had this experience.
Yeah.
And I write out of pain, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the pain that she was going through became my pain. We're very close. And and I didn't want to be there anymore. So I wrote with a frenzy. And that was a different experience for me.
Yes, right in from such emotions.
It was such,
Yeah.
and I was exhausted.
Oh wow.
And I came into my writing room. This is my writing room. I came
Mhm.
into my writing room before 8 a.m. And when my husband came home at night, the house was still dark because I hadn't moved. And in a way, it was not a terribly healthy several months.
Mhm.
That's how I wrote it. I wrote it out of pain and concern and fear. Fear is a great motivator.
Yes, yes. Fear is such a great motivator that it has wiped people completely from being poor to millionaires because the fear of dying or living continuously like the way they live. So fear is a powerful motivator. And so the person that is going through this opioid addiction, if they get the help that they need, if they get the support that they need, and if they are fearful of living like that forever, that can be a powerful motivator also.
I think so. I
Mm-hmm.
do think, though, that once a person is involved with drug use, everything is off the table. Nothing is the way we think. Their minds are so altered that rationale that may have worked before, discussions that went well before, everything is different. And so the idea is to get there before any of this happens. And for families, I think it's really a great discussion topic and maybe a great way to educate from the top down. We're going to talk about this now. I remember when I first started thinking about drug use, it's been a while since I started, nobody wanted to talk about it with me because if you don't say it, it doesn't exist. And when I was working on the book, I was sort of cursing people as I was sitting there, like, this does exist.
Yeah.
And this is here. And this is what's happening. And you can choose to see it, but you're not protected. Addiction doesn't really care about your social status, your education, nothing. And so it behooves everybody, I think, to learn as much as they can.
And putting your head in the sand is not a way to deal
Yeah,
with any problem, especially the problem of addiction.
right. And I also feel like we've lost some of our compassion for people who are not thriving in the way that we think they should thrive. People live on different planes and in different ways. That is no reflection on their quality as a person. And I felt like in creating Charlotte, she's a quality person. She is someone that you'd want to have in your life. She has a lot to offer, and she's an addict. So it shakes up the can a little bit of
Yeah.
what people think.
Yeah. But I love that you said that there is hope, that families can be a part of the care. That's what, I'm gathering from families can be as supportive as, be a supportive part of the care, but don't think that you can do it on your own.
Correct.
Seek the help, get professional help, because this is a disease, and it's a mind altering disease that you
Mhm.
just brought up, because people rationale is much different because that part of the brain is weakened. So
That's right.
you need to seek professional help.
Absolutely.
And people have come out on a lot of people have come out on the positive end, where they have gotten the help that they need, they've gotten the support that they need. It's not an easy fix.
And it's not permanent.
And it's not what?
Permanent.
It's not, what is not permanent? The fix
The
or
fix
the disease?
I think the fix is not permanent because that's the nature of addiction.
So they can go back and forth. can they be clean from one addiction and then go on to choosing another, or are you saying that they will come back to picking up the same addiction?
I think there are some people who have a propensity towards addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I made Charlotte an addict of what I told you, her
Mm-hmm.
weight and cigarettes, because that's an addictive personality that is far more familiar and acceptable to us as a society.
Mm-hmm.
Those are simply addictions. We're just used to them and we're not afraid of them. It's the next one that we aren't used to and that we are afraid of that I'm working off of the concept. If we can make it as obvious as smoking and everything else that we know of as addiction, then I think we're going to go overcome a big hurdle. And the hurdle for me, in my mind, is fear and shame. And those two things are very damning. And I think the book carries forward a lot of that, that kind of thought. Everybody's terrified and just so incredibly ashamed of what is happening. And that's really that's a toxic combination.
Fear and shame.
Fear and shame. And we all have it. The reason I think the book is really pertinent right now is because the culture is really suffering. And it seems a little bit out of control, in my opinion. And how do we change that? Well, get rid of the fear. Talk about it. I was an addict. I was addicted to. Someone wrote me an email and she said she just bought the book. She didn't realize what it was about. And she said, I'm a little worried because I had an addiction problem. And I don't know her. And when she wrote, I have an addiction problem, it occurred to me that no one has ever said that to me out loud or in writing ever. Now, that's not possible, that every person I know at my age, that no one has grappled with this problem. It's just that we don't share it.
Yeah. It's something to hide because
And,
shame silences.
it does.
That's one of the reasons why these addictions can be perpetuated, because of the shame. It silence you.
It does.
But instead of letting the shame silence you, learn to speak up. Learn to, for your own life's sake, for your future. Our life here on earth is so short. And it could be a life of beauty despite what you're going through. So instead of letting fear stop you, let fear be the catalyst to move you so
That's
that
right.
you can learn from your mistakes and become the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. And also I think that that process will bring about a lot of compassion for one another, and bring people together instead of separating people out. I think that that's where addiction lurks, in those places where everybody gets separated out. And we can look on other people as different and more susceptible or stronger or weaker. Those are areas where addiction really flourishes. So if we can all stop doing that, or even just become aware that we're doing that, even at the end of my experience with the methadone clinic and with Al-Anon, I still had to have a little talk with myself before I went to those meetings. That's how ingrained the judgment is.
Because a part of the fabric of who you now are. Yeah.
Exactly. That's who I am. That's who I am. I have a lot of fear, and that was one of them. And so I would talk to myself before I went into the medical center and say, you can love these people. These are just people. And this can happen to you. It's very humbling. It's very humbling to tackle this subject. I'm really glad I did it.
I am so grateful you did. Thank you very much. And please, I think this was such a necessary book because it is tackling a different part of the problem, a part that opens up the characteristics of the people that are going through this struggle. So thank you for giving Charlotte this role. And where can the audience who are listening, where can they pick up this book?
They can buy the book online from anywhere, any bookstore, any local bookstore, independent bookstores, or Amazon.
Okay. What about your website?
Or from, I think my website has a thing on it. Yeah. There's a
Okay.
tab on my website, Lisa K. Friedman.
Yes.
And,
I'm an advocate for getting your book on your website, girl, because
it's
you did
there.
the work. Let's get you the paid.
It's there. Yes.
Let's get her paid. Okay. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. I appreciate this, and I know that this work is necessary and important. And I believe that the person who's listening, the person who needs to hear this, is hearing this. So you did the right thing by writing this book.
Thank you for saying that. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, because the whole idea is to share. When you're a writer, you just want to share.
Yes. And you never know who.
You have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So the more, the better. And if anybody wants to drop me a note on my website, I would love that. Let me hear from you.
Tell them the website again.
And lisakfriedman.com. And I will write you back. And I hope you enjoy the book. And I should say it's funny.
Okay, so don't think
afraid.
that you're going. No, don't believe you're going down into a dungeon.
Exactly.
It's got some humor, and it will give you lessons also. So
it's just a relatable story.
Get your copy today. At the end of the year, I'm going to have a special prize for the person who bought every single one of these books, the Bold Book of the Day. A very special prize for that person. So, you never know. Make sure you get your book.
Beautiful.
Before you go, Lisa, there are 3 questions that I love to ask all of my guests, and so you're not going to get away. What's a bold promise that you can share with the audience?
I will always write the truth.
Period. Okay. What's a bold statement you can that you might share that may cause a paradigm shift?
Don't look away. See a person with a problem, lean in. There's always something you can do.
Thank you for sharing.
That'll shift.
What's a bold move that you'd like to make in the future?
I would like to help other writers learn how to write the truth. Because when you have a yen to write, many of my students have never written before, but feel they have a story inside. My contribution is to help people get their stories out.
Yes.
Because what we learn from each other is more important than anything. That's my promise to myself. My husband just asked me recently, he's getting ready to retire. And I said, what do you want to do next? And when he asked me, what do you want to do next? I said, I want to help more writers. Because sharing our stories brings us closer together and makes us more compassionate and more understood. And that to me is everything.
And that is such a good place for you to go at this point, because this is where you take someone from feeling isolated into feeling like there is a community waiting to help you lift up your voice. And I love that. Thank you.
And there is a community for everyone. Just listen. Open your ears.
Yes, and you'll find your space.
Yes, you will. You'll find your people.
You'll find your people. And your people will find you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming and sharing and, writing this important message for our world today. I would love to have you back. So if you ever have another project, come back and share. Or you just want to talk more about this project, come back and share. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, I enjoyed every minute.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.